Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Danielle, and I hadn't raised my voice like that in 20 years. But that day, I screamed. You don't get to do this, Erica. You don't get to erase my son like he never existed. I was shaking. Not from weakness, but from the kind of rage only a grieving mother could understand. My hand trembled as I pointed at her front door, the one she had just tried to slam in my face. And Erica, cold, smug, the same way she was at my son's funeral, stood there with her arms folded like she'd already won. Like I was some beggar who had come looking for leftovers. But I wasn't begging. Not anymore. You hid him from me, I spat. You kept my grandson a secret for 10 years. 10 years, Erica. Her eyes rolled, casual as ever. I didn't hide anything, Danielle. I raised my son away from your drama. From your guilt. From your delusions. Delusions? My voice cracked, but I didn't back down. My son, David, your husband. He died in that car accident, and you didn't even let me hold my grandson at the funeral. You had security walk me out. Erica took a step forward, her tone sharp. Because you turned his service into a spectacle. You stood up there, blaming me, accusing me of ruining his life, when I was the only one who ever stood by him. I gasped. Stood by him? You tore him away from his family. You poisoned his mind against me. And when he was gone, when all I had left was you two, you took my last piece of him and disappeared. You mean my son? She hissed. He's mine, Danielle. He's not some ghost you get to resurrect when it's convenient. He doesn't even know you exist, and that's for a reason. That's when I lost it. I slapped her. Hard. And I hadn't hit anyone since the 3rd grade, but my hand moved before I could stop it. The sound of the slap cracked through the hallway like a gunshot. Erica stumbled back. Her eyes wide. Her mouth open. She touched her cheek, red, raw. And stared at me like I was some monster. But I didn't regret it. Not even a little. You talk about him like he was yours alone, I whispered, stepping closer. But I carried him for 9 months. I stayed up with him every night through colic and asthma attacks. I raised him while your father called him not good enough and your mother said I was trailer trash. I fought for him. You married him. Erica didn't say a word. I lost my son, I choked. And now I'm losing my grandson too, and I haven't even met him. I turned, suddenly exhausted. My body wanted to give up. My knees shook. But my soul kept fighting. You want to shut me out forever? I said. Fine. But don't lie and tell yourself you're doing it for him. Because someday, he's going to look in the mirror. And when he sees David's eyes staring back at him, he's going to ask you why he doesn't know the woman who gave birth to the man who gave him life. And with that, I walked away. Or, I tried to. Because just as I reached the stairs, I heard the door creak open. A soft shuffle of feet, and then, a voice. Mom? A boy's voice. Small. Curious. Maybe 10 years old. What's going on? He asked. Who was that? I froze. Every bone in my body locked in place, like time itself had paused just for me to feel what was happening. His voice. It wasn't exactly David's. But it had the same rhythm. The same softness at the end of a question. The same musical note that David always had when he spoke to animals, or talked in his sleep. I turned around slowly, afraid that if I moved too fast, I'd scare the moment away. And there he was. Standing in the doorway, holding a Captain America mug, barefoot in plaid pajamas, blinking at me like I'd come from a dream he didn't remember having. My breath hitched. I think I forgot how to inhale. Because his face was David's. The same eyebrows. The same jawline. The same stubborn little cowlick on the left side of his forehead that no comb could ever fix. And his eyes. My God. His eyes. They were exactly David's. Deep brown. Warm. Wide. Honest. Time collapsed. I was standing in a doorway in 2025, but I could see 1996 again. I could hear David's little voice saying, "Look, Mama, I made a rocket out of toilet paper." I could smell Play-Doh and peanut butter. I could feel his little hand in mine, sticky with candy. The boy tilted his head. And just like that, I broke. I dropped to my knees, hands over my mouth, trying not to sob, but failing. I didn't say his name. I didn't reach for him. I just looked at him, and let every memory of my son flood through me like a river that had been dammed for far too long. "Who are you?" he asked again, quieter now. Erica stood frozen behind him, unsure of what to do. And then, I did something I hadn't planned to. I told the truth. "My name is Danielle," I whispered. "And I'm your grandmother." He blinked. Looked at his mother. Then back at me. "And I swear to you." In that moment, I saw something shift in his eyes. Recognition? Curiosity? Or maybe just the soul of a little boy who had always felt like someone was missing. Before Erica could stop him, he stepped toward me. And I whispered the words that would change all of our lives. "I've waited my whole life to see those eyes again. I wasn't always this broken." There was a time when David and I laughed every day. When he'd come home from school, toss his backpack on the couch, and yell, "Mom." I passed math, like he'd just won a Nobel Prize. He was sunshine in a human body, soft-hearted, smart, a little clumsy, but he had that light some kids are just born with. The kind that makes teachers adore them, that makes strangers smile on the street. And he was mine. My one and only. We had no money, but we had dreams. And David used to say, "Someday, I'll get us out of this place. You won't have to work doubles anymore. You'll have a garden, Mom. A real one. With sunflowers." But life doesn't play fair. Especially not when love gets involved. The first time he brought Erica home, something in me stiffened. She was polished. Too polished. Every hair in place. A designer purse hanging off her arm like it had been surgically attached. She didn't smile much, and when she did, it was that kind of smile where her mouth moved but her eyes didn't. David beamed at her like she hung the moon. I wanted to believe she was just nervous. Maybe she'd warm up. But she never did. She studied our peeling paint, our mismatched silverware, my thrift store shoes, all with that quiet, judging stare. And the way she looked at David? It wasn't love. It was ownership. Like she'd bought him. And now he was hers to sculpt, to mold, to isolate. Still, I bit my tongue. He was happy. That's what I told myself. Again and again. But slowly, he started changing. He stopped calling every Sunday. He skipped Thanksgiving for the first time in his life. Erica's family booked a cabin, he said. It's a thing they do every year. You understand, right? I nodded. I understood. I just didn't like what I understood. Then came the wedding. It was beautiful, on the outside. But my invitation arrived 3 weeks late, like an afterthought. No mention in the program. No family toast. I was seated at a table in the back, next to a cousin of Erica's who kept saying, "Oh, I didn't know David's mom was still around." Still around? I wanted to scream. To tell them that every scar on his heart had been bandaged by me. That every dream he ever dared to have was born from my sacrifices. But I kept quiet. Until I couldn't anymore. Because 6 months after the wedding, I found out through a friend of a friend that Erica was pregnant. Not from David. Not even from him. From Facebook. A blurry sonogram photo posted by one of her cousins. Captioned, "Can't wait to meet baby James." James. A name I'd never heard. A child I'd never been told about. My hands shook as I stared at that post. I called David 17 times. No answer. I drove to their apartment. Erica answered the door, 7 months pregnant, glowing like the sun had kissed her personally, and stared at me like I was something she'd scrape off her heel. "You're not welcome here," she said. Calm. Cold. "I just want to see my son," I begged. "And my grandchild." She tilted her head. "You gave birth to him. That doesn't give you a lifetime membership to his life." I don't remember what I said next. I think I cried. Maybe I screamed. I do remember her laughing, softly, cruelly, as she closed the door. That night, David finally called. He said he was tired of being caught in the middle. That Erica was his priority now. That I needed to stop showing up uninvited. I whispered, "But I'm your mother." He didn't say a word. Just hung up. I didn't hear from him again for almost a year. Until the accident. A rainy Thursday. A delivery truck jumped the median. David's car didn't stand a chance. Gone. Just like that. 28 years old. Newly a father. My baby. Gone. I wasn't allowed at the hospital. Erica had listed me as estranged. Security wouldn't even let me in the waiting room. At the funeral, I tried to read something. A poem David wrote when he was 10. Erica snatched the paper from my hands, turned to the pastor, and said, "That woman is not speaking." That woman. Not his mother. Not the woman who raised him. Just that woman. I should have fought harder. I should have demanded answers. But grief is paralyzing. It doesn't hit you all at once. It suffocates you slowly. Day by day. Breath by stolen breath. And I convinced myself that maybe, in time, Erica would come around. That maybe I'd get to meet the baby. I sent cards. Birthday gifts. Letters. All returned. All unopened. Years passed. People told me to move on. Focus on the good memories, they said. But how do you move on, when the only thing keeping you alive is the hope that one day, the child your child left behind might look for you? That maybe, one day, he'd wonder where his father's side of the family was. That maybe, just maybe, he'd come knocking. But he didn't. He never did. So I knocked instead. And 10 years later, I finally stood face to face with him. With James. With the living, breathing reminder of everything I'd lost, and everything I still had left to fight for. He sat across from me, legs jittering, fingers tugging at the corner of a napkin. Same hands. Same dimples when he gave that unsure smile. But it was the eyes that froze me, those unmistakable, ocean-colored eyes I once kissed goodnight 1,000 times. David's eyes. On a stranger. Except he wasn't a stranger. He was my grandson. And for a moment, I couldn't breathe. "So," James finally said, voice cracking under the weight of silence. "You really are my grandma?" I nodded. I couldn't speak just yet. He let out a shaky laugh. "This is crazy. My mom told me you were dead." Dead. I had prepared for anger. Confusion. Even indifference. But that felt like a punch to the chest. "She told you I was dead?" I repeated slowly, making sure I hadn't misheard. He nodded. "Since I was little. Said you passed before I was born. That dad didn't talk about you much because it hurt him too much." I swallowed hard. My nails dug into my palms under the table. "Oh, it hurt him," I said quietly. "But not for the reason she made you believe." James frowned. "So what happened?" I looked at him, really looked, this beautiful, lost boy who'd been fed half-truths and silences and polished lies his whole life. I wanted to protect him from more pain. But I also knew he deserved the truth. The full truth. Even if it shattered what he thought he knew. Your father, I began softly, was the kindest soul I ever met. And I'm not just saying that because I raised him. He was gentle. Thoughtful. A bit goofy. He had this thing where he couldn't walk past a stray dog without trying to feed it. James smiled faintly. I do that, too. I smiled, then let it fall. But when he met your mother, things changed. Slowly. Quietly. In ways I didn't realize until it was too late. She was never mean, James said quickly, defensively. Strict, yeah. A little cold. But she took care of everything. She protected me. I nodded. I'm sure she did. In her way. But protecting you shouldn't have meant erasing me. James looked down. I don't know what to believe. You don't have to decide today, I said gently. Just, let me tell you what happened. Then you can take your time figuring out where the truth lives. He nodded slowly. I continued. Your dad loved you before you were even born. He used to call me after every doctor's appointment, even when I wasn't invited, and tell me every detail. He'd say things like, he has 10 fingers, Mom, as if that was the most groundbreaking news in the world. I laughed softly, blinking back tears. He picked your name, you know. I thought Mom did, James said. No, I whispered. She wanted something trendy. He wanted something timeless. He said, I want my son's name to last longer than I do. James leaned forward. So what happened? Why didn't I grow up with you around? I looked him dead in the eyes. Because I made the mistake of staying quiet. I didn't fight hard enough when your mom shut the door in my face. I thought, maybe, just maybe, she'd come around. That if I kept sending letters, gifts, messages, she'd let me in. I paused. My throat burned. But she never did. And your father, he stopped fighting too. He was tired. Torn between keeping his family together and not losing his marriage. And in the end, he lost both. James stared at the table, silent. Then he said something I didn't expect. She never talks about him. Not really. Just says he was good. That it broke her when he died. It broke us both, I whispered. But she turned that grief into control. She used it to rewrite everything. And she did it so well that you never even knew I existed. He nodded, still not looking up. Do you hate her? He asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. Hate's easy, I said. But it leaves you empty. I've been angry for years. But underneath all of that is just pain. Because she didn't just take you from me. She took me from you. James looked up. And for the first time, his eyes weren't guarded. They were wide. Glassy. Searching. She lied, he said, more to himself than to me. She lied about something this big. I reached into my purse and pulled out something wrapped in old tissue paper. Your father gave me this the day you were born, I said. He wasn't allowed to bring me to the hospital. So he met me outside later. And he gave me this. I slid the tiny item across the table. A baby sock. Soft. Blue. With a tiny embroidered J. James picked it up gently. His fingers trembled. I kept it, I said. Because it was the only proof I had that you were real. He stared at it for a long time. Then he whispered, Can I see pictures of him? I opened my phone. Photo after photo. David in his little league uniform. David grinning with cake on his face. David holding a paintbrush. David at his college graduation. David holding a tiny sock. James stared in silence. And then, his laugh looks like mine, he said softly. No, I said with a warm smile. Your laugh looks like his. And just like that, the wall between us began to crumble. Piece by piece. Truth by truth. She stormed in like a hurricane, heels clicking, face flushed, eyes wild with fury. There you are. James and I both turned, startled. Our booth was tucked in the back of the cafe, but her voice sliced through the entire place like a blade. I've been calling you all morning, she snapped, marching right up to our table. James stood up. Mom. Don't you mom me, she hissed. What do you think you're doing here? With her? The room went silent around us. A waitress paused mid-step. An older couple at the next table slowly turned their heads. But Erica didn't notice, or didn't care. You lied, James said quietly. You told me she was dead. Erica blinked. For just a second, her mouth opened without a sound. But she recovered fast. I had to, she said, voice dripping with venom. She was toxic, James. Manipulative. She ruined your father. Don't, I said, standing now too. Don't you dare blame me for what you did. Erica spun toward me, eyes narrowing. You don't get to speak. You lost that right a long time ago. I never gave it up, I said calmly. You just refused to listen. James held up both hands. Okay, stop. Both of you. I'm not a kid anymore. I can handle the truth. Erica rounded on him. You think this is about truth? This is about loyalty. I protected you from this woman. From her poison. You don't know what she's like. I know she kept my baby sock, James cut in, eyes steady. I know she showed me pictures of Dad I've never seen. I know she cried when she talked about losing both of us. Erica's mouth twitched. She's manipulating you, she said, more quietly now. That's what she does. No, James said firmly. That's what you do. The air froze between them. Erica's face changed, just slightly. The fury gave way to something colder. Sharper. You ungrateful little boy. I sacrificed everything for you. I raised you on my own, kept a roof over your head, made sure you didn't grow up around her kind of drama. And this is how you repay me? Sitting in a coffee shop with the woman who nearly ruined our lives? She didn't ruin anything, James said. She lost her son. You took away her only connection to him. That's not protecting me, that's punishment. Erica shook her head. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, he said, louder now. You made sure I grew up believing no one else loved me but you. And maybe that worked when I was 10. But I'm 23 now, and I see you. He looked at me. I see her, too. Erica followed his gaze. So what now? You think this is your new family? You're gonna pretend she was there for all your birthdays and school plays? She wasn't. I was. I stepped in then. Calm. Steady. But unshaken. I don't want to replace you, Erica. I'm not trying to rewrite anything. But I am trying to reclaim what's left. Erica's eyes flared. You don't get to reclaim anything. You don't deserve him. No, I said softly, turning to James. But he deserves me. James didn't speak. He looked at both of us, his world torn between the woman who raised him and the one who had been stolen from him. His jaw clenched. I spent my whole life thinking there was no one else, he said, more to himself than either of us. That there were no grandparents. No history. Just silence. Then he looked straight at Erica. You didn't protect me. You robbed me. She flinched. Just barely. But it was there. And you know what hurts most? James said, his voice trembling now. I would have understood. If you'd told me the truth, even a messy, painful truth, I would have accepted it. But you lied. 4 years. And you let me grieve for someone who was right here. He stepped back from her. I'm going to keep seeing her. And if you can't handle that, then maybe it's time you looked at what else you've lied about. Erica stood still for a long moment. Her shoulders rose and fell, her lips tight. Then, without another word, she turned around and walked out. No apology. No explanation. Just exit. The door closed behind her. The cafe exhaled. So did I. James sat down slowly, burying his face in his hands. I reached out, not to fix it, but to let him know I was there. Really there. After a long moment, he looked up. She's going to hate me for this. I nodded. Probably. But hating you is easier than facing what she's done. He nodded slowly. Then, quietly. Will you tell me more stories about Dad? I smiled through tears. I've got a lifetime of him. And this time? He stayed. A few days passed. I didn't expect to see him again so soon. After everything, after that cafe explosion, after Erica's storm out, I figured he'd need time. Time to think. To choose. And I was ready to wait. But one evening, just as I was watering the little garden outside, I heard a car pull up. Headlights cutting through the dusk. I turned. He stepped out. No words, no dramatic gestures. Just a quiet presence. A son walking toward a mother he never truly got to know. Hey, James said, softly. I set the watering can down. You hungry? He smiled a little. Yeah. I guess I am. We didn't say much at first. Just moved around the kitchen like we'd done it 1,000 times. I heated up leftovers, he grabbed 2 plates. We sat at the table, one that had waited far too long to be filled with family again. Halfway through dinner, James looked around the small, cozy home. Feels like him in here, he said. Even though I don't remember much. I nodded. He built those shelves. Painted that back wall. I gestured toward the photos on the mantel. And that one, your 3rd birthday, he planned that whole party. James looked at the picture of a boy in a red sweater, icing on his nose, a man's arms wrapped around him mid-laugh. That's him? He asked, voice low. Your dad loved you so much, I said. Losing him didn't just break me. It broke every plan I ever had. James nodded slowly. And Erica? I sighed. She hated how much he needed me. Said I turned him soft. Truth is, your father wasn't perfect. But he was kind. He believed in love more than control. That scared her. James leaned back in his chair. I think I started to see it, he said. In little ways. When I got accepted into college and she made it about her. When I tried to move out, and she guilt-tripped me for weeks. He looked at me. But I kept telling myself she was just a strong mom. She is strong, I said. But strength without truth turns into power. And power can ruin a family. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I stood up and walked toward the hallway closet. Pulled out a small wooden box. Time-worn. Weathered. Tied shut with a faded blue ribbon. I kept this, I said, placing it gently in front of him. Every piece of you I could. He untied the ribbon. Inside were old photos. Crayon drawings. A hospital wristband. And at the bottom, carefully folded, was an envelope. His name was written on it. In his father's handwriting. James froze. Is this? I nodded. Your dad wrote it 2 weeks before the accident. He wanted to give it to you when you turned 18. But, things happened. I never got the chance. With trembling fingers, James opened the letter. He didn't read it out loud. He didn't need to. His eyes scanned the words, and I watched his face shift, first a flicker of recognition, then a quiet ache, then something even deeper. A sense of home. Tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't blink them away. He let them fall. He called me his little lion. James whispered. I smiled. You were fearless. He clutched the letter to his chest. I didn't even know what I was missing. Not really. But now that I have this, it's like a puzzle piece slid into place. He stood up then. Walked over to me. And for the first time in 23 years, he hugged me. Not out of politeness. Not out of pity. But out of knowing. He held on tight. I closed my eyes and held back my own tears. I'm sorry, he whispered. For all the years we lost. I pulled back gently. We didn't lose them. They were just waiting. Like this box. Like this letter. Waiting for the day you came back. He nodded, wiping his face. I'm not going anywhere now. We stood there, two people finding each other across a bridge made of grief, love, and rediscovered truth. And in his eyes, I saw his father. Not just the shape. Not just the color. But the spirit. Kind. Brave. And finally, home. Sometimes, the people we're told to forget are the ones our hearts remember most. Lies can bury the truth, but love has a way of digging it back up. So if you feel something missing, keep searching. You might just find a piece of yourself in the eyes of someone who's been waiting all along.